Last class, I was talking about arrays, right? So we were saying how do you store a content into an array, how do you modify or how do you delete, and that's what we were trying to see. Now let's see the another last type of variable called associative array or hash. Now the major difference between array and hash is, first of all, both of them are used for the same purpose. That means if you have more than one value to be stored or multiple entity, then I said you will be using array. Now even hash serves the same purpose. That means when you have more than one entity to store, you will be using hash also. But how is it different from array? Now in an array, if you see, the values that whatever that you're going to put is an ordered element. When I say ordered, we yesterday saw everything will be accessed by index. So if you put an value in the first, it will be using an index 0, and then followed by that it will be on an incremental way, right? But in an hash, the values that you're going to enter will not be in the same order. That means array is an ordered element, but hash is an unordered. Okay, still, that doesn't make any sense. Whether you're going to have it in an order way or unordered, how does it matter? So you're going to just store everything together. Then why do you need hash? Particularly, hash will be useful when you don't want to just store only the values, but have a key and pair combination for every value. That means in an array, we used to directly store a value, right? So there are possibilities where you can store duplicate values. That means, for example, if there is an array like this, I can store some duplicate values like this. Now, if you see, it will store the values wherein the elements index number is fixed and it is not changed. So if you have a scenario where you want to store multiple values, but you don't want to store the same values again, that is when you will go for hash. Now, hash is represented using percentage. Okay, so dollar is for scalar variable, array is represented by at the rate, and hash is represented by percentage. So again, percentage followed by a string name wherein anything that you want you can use, but within the naming convention, that is, you should always begin it with a character and you can follow it by an underscore or a number. Okay, so it's the same naming convention. But now, when you're trying to store a value in an hash, it doesn't store directly. So for every value that you have, there should be a key to identify. It is like, pointing it out. So how do you try to store? Now that means if you're trying to store a value, okay, there will be a key and that key will be associated with the value. So you will be giving a key and a value pair combination together. So rather than just storing directly one after the other, you will be storing here one after the other, but it will not be just one value directly. It will be having a key associated to it followed by the value. So going forward, this is what you will be doing like for multiple values. That means if you give something like this, then the first one is nothing but the key, and the following value that you put will be the value stored into the key, and then it will be the second key, and after that whatever you have will be the value for this. So now how does it refer is, rather than using the index number in array, so in array we were using index number, right? Why did we use index number? It is because whenever I say array of 0, it will always give me 1, right? If I say array of 1, it will always give me 2 because it is fixed and it is ordered. But in hash, while you are storing, it will be like this. But when you are trying to retrieve value from the hash, it will not be storing exactly in the same order. So that is the reason we cannot go with the same index concept. So instead of that, we will be using this key. So now at any point of time, if you want to get the value, say you want to get this value, okay, then what is that you have to do is you need to use the key. So if you use the key 1, this will point to the value 1 and it will help you to get. In the same way, if you point to the key 2, this will help you to refer to the value 2. Like this, in hash, we will not use the index number because the values is not fixed. It might change because when you are storing, key 1 will be first, key 2 might be second. But when you are actually trying to retrieve the value, sometimes key 2 might be stored first and key 1 might be stored second. So we really don't know what is the order that is storing. Okay, so hash is nothing but a variable which can store multiple values, where for every single value that you're storing you need to have a key. So the value comes always in the format of a key and a value pair. Now again, the key is nothing but any string that you can use to identify the value. So for example, for the same value that you have put here, right, I can give the key like this. Say for example, if you want to store the same thing in an hash, it will be like this. So I will say something like key 1, okay, and what is the value for this? 1. And then I will say key 2 and I'll say 2. Then I'll say key 3 and I'll say 3 and key 4 and then 1. Now if you see, the key whatever that you're giving will be unique. That means here you cannot give once again a value like key 1. Okay, suppose if you say key 1 and if you say 5, what will happen is the value of the key 1 will be replaced from 1 to 5. So that is how you can make sure that whatever keys that you're using will not have duplicate entries. That means for an hash, there will be only one key which contains a value. Suppose if you are once again trying to store it like this, now at any point of time, first if you see in the key 1, it was 1. Then later when you give like this, it will be not 1, it will replace this with 5. That is how you can make sure that there are no duplicate entries that are happening. Okay, so now, like I said, this is how you will be storing the value in hash. And how do you retrieve the value? Now that is the second thing. Now, if it was an array, we used to say dollar array in the square bracket the index number, right? So now if it is going to be hash, how is that we are going to do? It will be in the same format but slightly different. That is, we used to say dollar hash. Now what does dollar hash means? That means you are trying to get a single key's value, right? So that is why if you say dollar hash, it will give. And now the difference between array and hash is, in the array you used to have square brackets. So square brackets is only for array. Now if it is hash, then it will be flower bracket. Okay, that's the difference. And inside the flower bracket, you give the key name. So now if you give the key name like this will be getting you the value of what? 1. In the same way, if you say dollar hash key of 2, and this will get you the value of 2. Getting it? That's the difference between array and hash. So if it is an array, we used to say dollar array. In the square bracket, we used to give index number, right? But in an hash, since we do not have an index, the first difference is you will be using the key instead of the index, because in hash we store it as a key pair value. And second thing is the brackets. Array goes with square bracket, but in hash it will be flower bracket. Okay, so this is how you will be getting the values. Okay, so now quickly let us try to have one example wherein we'll see how you would store and how do you retrieve. So let me create a hash of students. Okay, and here, how is that you're going to say? It's the same way with key pair values. So first one, I will say stud1. Okay, and I'm going to say Kirsch, and then stud2, stud3. Okay, and now at any point of time, if you want to get the complete value, you will say print students. See what is it written. Okay, equal to percentage students. And then if I want to print the first value, uh, value of dollar hash student1 is equal to dollar hash, sorry, it's not, students in the square bracket, student1 is equal to dollar students. Okay, and in the square bracket we'll say student1, student1. Okay, in the same way here. Okay, so let's try to run this. As a syntax, okay, fine. And now let's run. So, okay, there's a spelling mistake. Okay, so if you see the difference, first of all, it's not like array, wherein if you say print at the rate array, it used to give you the complete value. But in hash, it doesn't store everything like that. It stores everything in a different memory location. That is why you're not able to just directly print, because the values that you're going to store is not directly stored, but in terms of a key and a pair value. So that is how, in order to retrieve a single value from an hash, you need to have the key. So for every key, there will be one value attached or associated. Getting it? So this is how you will be creating an hash, and you will be trying to create a value and put it to that key. Now, the same thing, if you want to add a new value, then simply what you can do is, in the same way, suppose if I want to add a new key, okay, say, then it is the same way, wherein I will say students, and directly I can give a new key. Say for example, I'll say student 4, and the value for that is Adam. Okay, And now if you try to see with the value of the fourth student that we added, so you'll be getting back the value. So it's not only the retrieving the value, but adding a value into a hash is also in the same way, wherein you have to simply say the dollar students, and in the flower bracket you will give the key name, and that key name will associate it with the value. So what it will do is anything that you have on the right hand side will be taken and it will be put into the left hand side, wherein in the left hand side you have a hash, and specifically this is the key in this hash where it tries to store this value. Okay, so for many purposes, for complicated data you will be using hashes only, so try to understand this very much, because it will not be useful to have array for very complicated. So to prevent duplicate values, as I said, it's always easy to use hash. Getting it?
So Adam, like why we are using dollar symbol in front of this one, the students? Like this is why can't we use percentage?
Okay, so did you get yesterday's class on why did I use dollar here, if you remember? Because hash percentage, when I say it represents hash, right? So what does hash represent? You are storing multiple value, but what is that you are trying to retrieve? One single value, right? Or one single entity. So how do you represent a single entity? It is using a scalar variable, and scalar variable has to always begin with dollar. That is how while storing multiple values you are using percentage, but when retrieving the value you are not retrieving all the value, you are retrieving only one value. That is why you use dollar in the beginning to represent that from this hash you just try to get me only one single value, which is of the type scalar.
Oh, okay.
Did everyone get that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so now going forward we will be using these elements, like we'll be using scalar variable, array, or hash based on the need on how do you have to store. Okay, now what is that you're going to do with storing these values? So what we saw until now is all about storing, but literally we are not just going to store and keep it, right? So we are going to do some operations using this value. That is when in Perl there are two kinds of operators. That is one arithmetic operators and the other one string or character based operators. So what exactly does it mean? So if you want to do any arithmetic operation, that is mathematics, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, right? So all those things are possible using the arithmetic operators. And other than that, if you want to compare some numbers or some values, then you will be using greater than, lesser than, equal to, not equal to, right? Greater than, equal to, less than, equal to. Then even that can be done using the arithmetic operators. On the same way, on a string, so if you see all these numbers wherein you can add, subtract, multiplication, greater than, lesser than, whatever, it's possible only for numbers, right? So arithmetic operators are applied against numbers. But if you have a value that you're stored in some kind of variable, and if it is a string or a character, not a number, then you cannot add two characters, you cannot subtract two characters, right? Can you multiply two characters? Can I multiply a into a? It doesn't make any sense. Then what is that we can do with these characters? So for characters, pretty much there's only two things. That is, either you can check whether two strings are equal to or they are not equal to. So there might be many scenarios where we'll be facing it. While we are going with an example, I'll show you. But unlike numbers, in the strings you can do only two things. That is, either you can check if two values are equal to or if they are not equal to. Okay, and how exactly are you going to do it? Now, if you take an instance for running any of this arithmetic operation, we need two values, right? And now when you're taking two values, the two values might be a single entity value, right? So if I'm saying I need to add, what are the requirements, bare minimum requirements? I need two numbers to be added. So now if you see, they are two single identity or they are two single numbers. So how exactly you're going to store two single values and get it? We are going to use scalar variables, because if it is a multiple values, only then we will be using array. So pretty much all the arithmetic operation or the string operation will be done against a scalar variable. Keep it in mind, because only a scalar variable will be able to store a single value or retrieve a single value. So if you say it is a single value, then it has to be a scalar variable. So now if you have two numbers to add, then the value of these two numbers can be stored in two separate scalar variables, and then you can use them to add or subtract or divide. Okay, so in the same concept, what you can see here is an example where, let's assume that you have a number which has been stored in a variable or a scalar variable called $a and another value in $b. So if you have to do a multiplication, then the syntax would be, you will be saying $a space star space $b, wherein star represents multiplication. And if you have to do a division, then you will say $a forward slash $b. And if you want to add two numbers or two values, you will say $a plus $b. Okay. Similarly, if you want to subtract these two values, then you will say $a minus $b. So this is from the regular arithmetic operations. But if you want to compare two values, then you have to use these things. So the first thing here is, how do you compare? Suppose if I'm asking you, check whether a value that you have in one variable is equal to another. Say for example, if $a is equal to 10 and $b I'm trying to store 20. So if I want to check whether a is equal to b, how can I do? So this is the syntax that I have to use, wherein if you look, I will not be using single equal to, and we will be using double equal to. So whenever you see a double equal to, you are trying to compare whether on the left hand side whatever you have is equal to right hand side. This is because what will happen if I say single equal to? So what do we mean by single equal to? Say for example, if I say $a equal to 10,
Like assigning a value.
exactly. Now here, say I'm having value like this, right? So whenever you see some values, it means anything that you have on the right hand side of the equal to is in value which will be stored on the left hand side, wherein left hand side is a scalar variable which gets the value 10 stored into it. So now if I say like this, $a equal to $b, what does it mean? Anything on the right hand side, the value of this will be stored into $a. So what is the value of $b? 14. So this is equivalent to saying as $a equal to 14. Okay, that is why to compare two values, we will not be saying equal. Equal is only for assigning values. So instead of that, we will be saying double equal to. So simply double equal to means you are comparing two values. So what this will do? Now when you are comparing two values, Perl will return a value, because you need to know. Whereas here, if you say plusing, I mean addition, multiplication, whatever you do, literally it is going to return the value, right? But if it is a comparison, then Perl is going to first compare whether both are equal, and it will always return something called as true or false. That means for comparison, it will not be able to return an output like what is the multiplication total value or addition total value or what is the subtracted value. Here you have a return value, but here there is no return. So instead of that, what it will do is it will return something called as true or false. That means it is not going to exactly return the word called true or false, but it will use some logical representation through which Perl itself can understand that the condition is successful or not. That means if the value of A is equal to B, then it will return true to the Perl, and Perl will understand that it is condition is true. And in case if A is not equal to B, then it will be returning false. Okay, so that's how it tries to check. But the same thing, if you want to check the reverse way, I want to check if A is not equal to B, then you have to use this syntax wherein if you say exclamatory and equal to, it means check whether A is not equal to B. So now here what will be the return is if A is not equal to B, then it will return true because the condition is like that. So I am not asking to check whether both are equal to. I am asking check whether both are not equal to. So when A is not equal to B, then the condition is true. Understand? So when it will return a true, because the condition what you have asked to check is A should not be equal to B. Yeah, if A is not equal to B, then it is 100% matching with your requirement, then it will say true. But if A is equal to B, then your condition is not matching, then it will return false. Okay, so that is the difference between how do you check equal to and not equal to. Okay, so that doesn't mean that if A is not equal to B, it will return false both the cases. Here you are asking Perl to check if both are equal to. So that means your ask is check both are equal to, and if it not equal to, then it will return false. But here your ask is check if both are not equal to. So only if they are not equal to, it will return true. But if they are equal, then it will say false because the condition what you have asked is not being matched. Okay, so in the same way, if you want to check whether two numbers are lesser than, then you will say less than. And the same way here, if A is less than B, then it will return true. If not, it will return false. Same way, if you want to check if A is greater than B, then you will use this. So this will return true only if A is greater than B. Suppose if A is less than B, then it will return the false. Now, in addition to this, if you want to check two different values, that is, if A is either lesser or equal to B, then it will return the condition true. That means now say if you have A is 10 and B is 14, like I showed you. Now this condition will be true because you are matching two things. First thing you are checking is A less than B? If A is less than B, then tell me it is true. No, A is definitely less than B, right? Because what? It is 10 is less than 14, so it is true. Suppose if you have given the value as A is 14, B is also 14. Even in that case, the condition will be true. That is because A is less than B. Is 14 less than 14? No. But you also have a condition saying equal to. The next thing it will check is if A is less or equal to B. So or equal to B means A is equal to B. Yes, 14 is equal to 14. So condition matches. So that is how you can have two conditions at the same point and it will return true. So it will fail only if A is greater than B. Suppose if A is 15 and B is 14, this condition will not match. That is, neither 15 is lesser than or equal to 14. So the same thing reverse you can check if A is greater than or equal to. So now if you give the value of A as 15, which is obviously greater than B, that is 14, it will be true. Suppose if you say A is also 14, then it will match because A is not greater than B, but A is equal to B. But here, if you say A is 10, then the condition will be false because A is not greater than or equal to B. Okay, so that is how you can use this condition to quickly verify. Now, like this, you will also be using the string operator, wherein instead of comparing two numbers, if you want to compare two strings, then you will not say double equal to, but you will use a word called EQ. EQ represents equal to. So now, if whatever string that you have in A, say for example, in A I put apple and in B I put orange. Now, when you're trying to compare, if A equal to B, then it will check only if apple is equal to orange, it will say true. But now, is apple equal to orange? No, it is not equal to, so it will give false. But if you give the next condition the opposite of that, here you will say if A is not equal to B, that is NE. So is apple not equal to orange? Yes, it is not equal to. So the condition will be true here. Okay, so that is how you can use the same thing for strings with EQ and NE, not equal to. Okay, so with this basics, let us try to run some program and let us try to have reference how exactly you can do that. Okay, so let us use some simple functions. So now, so what I'll do is, let us try to write a program to add a number, multiply a number, subtract a number, and divide a number. And let's see how it is going to help us with the values. So let me first have a value of A. Okay, I'll create a scalar variable. I'll store A and I'll say B, say 20. Okay, so first thing is, let's add the numbers. So now if you are adding, you have to say $A plus $B. Okay, and you're ending up with semicolon. But how is that you're going to do? Now you have to store this again into some value. Only then you can retrieve that value, right? So what is the output of this? 10 plus 20, 30. And what kind of variable should we use to store this? It should be an array or scalar variable. Where should we store the output? Hello?
Like we can create another variable and can we
No.
place that like
What kind of
dollar $C is equals to
exactly? So I will say add equal to $A plus $B. Okay. So now what this is going to do is, this is going to add these two values, because anything that you have on the left hand side, it will try to evaluate first. That is, now here you are saying to add two numbers, so this will add two numbers and take that value and put into the left hand side, that is this new array, sorry, this is new scalar variable called add. So now if you try to say addition of $A and $B is equal to dollar add. Okay, so let's try to run this and see. Okay, you see, it is giving you the value of total value. Same way, if you want to mm, subtract the numbers. Okay, okay. So why is it giving me minus 10? Because I am subtracting a minus b. So what is a? 10. So what is the value of 10 minus 20? Which is minus 10, right? That is why you are getting this value. If I say b minus a, then what will happen? 20 minus 10 is plus 10. That is, then it will give me the value. But right now you are subtracting 10 minus 20, which is minus 10. Okay. And now if I try to do multiplication, so now what will be the value? 10 into 20 is how much? How much is 10 into 20? 200. Okay. And the same thing if I want to divide. So I'll create a new variable called div, and I'll say $a divided by $b. So what will be the output? How much is $a divided by $b? Anyone?
0.5.
Okay. Okay. Now this is how you will be using the arithmetic operation. But now if you remember, we also saw from the comparison. It is mainly from adding or subtracting is what we did. But how do you compare? Now, to compare, you cannot directly use it as a condition because you need to retrieve some value from the condition, right? Only if retrieve some values, then you will be able to put some condition and then work on that. Now, for the condition, how exactly you are going to work? So that is when in Perl, you cannot directly use these comparison because for this you need some other concept called comparison, or we have something called as conditional statement. So only along with that you will be using this. So how do we use those conditional statement? So to understand the conditional statement, first of all, why do we need a conditional statement and what does it help us with? So many times when you're writing a script like Perl, you might need to do something based on a condition. Okay. Now, for example, when I was trying to give you an example, say we want to check if I am adding two values. If A is equal to B, then I have to do something. And in case if A is not equal to B, then I have to do something else. So these are the ways wherein you will be having specific condition, and only if that condition matches, you have to do something. If not, you don't have to do. That means now for the same example, whatever that we are running, say I want to print the user only if A is equal to B, it should print on the screen saying that A is equal to B. If not, I don't want to print on the screen that A is equal to B. How will you do it? So that is when you need both the things to do. The first thing is you need to do a comparison, and then only if the comparison returned value is true, you should be doing the print statement of whatever you want. So that way, how exactly the condition works is, for a conditional statement, you will always need one condition to specify. Okay, so the condition is nothing but what we just spoke some time back, whether you want to compare two numbers greater than, less than, or equal, or you want to compare between two strings. So that is what the condition that you will be giving, and for that condition you will be attaching a line of code or Perl statement. So this is the condition that you will give, and for that condition there will be some line of statements that you have to run. What do you mean by line of statements? It is nothing but again the Perl code. If there is any line that you want to execute, if the condition only is matching, so what will do Perl is, when you have given that something called statements, it will come to that, it will check if the condition is true, then it will go inside and run that particular line of code that you have specified, and it will proceed further. Suppose if the condition doesn't match, then it will never execute that line of Perl that you have written. So that means you can give a condition based on which it will be running. Okay, so to give the syntax, how it works is, now, the condition always works with if. The syntax for that is, you will be saying if and you will be saying a condition, and after this you have to open a flower bracket and close a flower bracket, and within this you will be giving all the statements or the lines whatever that you want to execute. Okay, so now here, what will be the condition? The condition will be whatever that we saw in the arithmetic or string one. So checking whether both are equal to, not equal to, greater than or lesser than, all those things will act as the condition. And when will it work? So for example, if you have given this block of statement in your Perl code, so Perl executes everything line by line. So whenever it comes to this line, it immediately will run this condition and check whether it is returning a true or false. If the value returned is true, then it will come within this flower bracket. Whatever that you have given, it will run everything. Okay, so you can give one line or you can give multiple lines. You can write program as a whatever way you want. Like I can give 10 print lines, or I can do some addition, whatever I want I can do. Now this will happen only if the condition is returning true. Suppose if the condition is not true and it is returning false, then what will happen is Perl will never execute anything that you have within this. So it will directly skip here and it will come to the end of this. And from here, it will proceed further with whatever other lines of code that you have in the Perl. Okay, so that is how the condition works. So let us try to apply the same condition in Perl, whatever that we saw now, and see how it is going to work. So let us write a condition where if A is equal to B, we should print to the user that A is equal to B. That's it, nothing more than that. Okay, so now let me just quickly delete everything. Okay, so you have this. So first thing is we need to compare. So to compare, we have to say if and then the condition. So the condition is A equal to $B. And once that is done, you have to open a flower bracket and close a flower bracket. And anything that you want to work if the condition is successful is within this. Okay, so here I'll simply give one print statement. I'll say print $A is equal to $B. Okay, and here I'll just print end of script. So now what will happen is when Perl is running, first it will come, it will assign this value for A and B, and then when it comes here, it will try to do the condition, that is if A is equal to B. So now it will check whether 10 is equal to 20. No, that means the condition is false. So what it will do, it will come, it will skip whatever that you have given here, and then it will proceed further. And when it is proceeding further, the last line that what you have given is another print. So directly it will come here and print this. Okay, so see. You see, it directly print this. That is because only if this condition is matching, it will go inside and print whatever you have. But if you don't have the condition matching, it will never go inside. Now simply, if I say this as 20, now is the condition matching? Yes. So this will return a true value. So since it is returning a true value, whatever you have within this block of statement, attach it to this if will get executed. Okay. So now you see the output. You see, it prints this. So that is how you can now use any condition that you want and you can check whether it is working. Now the same reverse way that I can do. Now if A is equal to B, you are doing it. Now I will say the same thing if I want, I can have one more. Okay, let me put one more here. Now I'm going to say here is, so I'm saying I'm giving one more condition and this condition is if A is not equal to B, then you print A is not equal to B. If not, you don't print. So in this case, what will happen? You have two conditions and now only this condition will match. So it will print only this. And this condition is not matching because A is not equal to B. That is the reason 20 is equal to 20. So the condition is false. So it will never print this. You see, it never prints. But if I change this value, now, what will happen? This condition will fail, so it will not print this, whereas this condition will be successful because 10 is not equal to 20. So whatever that you have given here will get printed. You see, it will print A is not equal to B. So like this, you can use a condition to either check for a number, that is, you can check whether is A is lesser than or greater than, or even you can say greater than or less than equal to, and it will work. Now, the important thing what we need to know is we can use if condition like this, but many times you might have to do two things for the same condition, because here, what did I say? If a condition matches, you do this. Okay, that is fine. If the condition doesn't match, you are proceeding further. What if you don't want that to happen and you want to do something else if the condition doesn't match? That means if the condition is true, then you do this. That is what you are saying, right? That is what the if condition. There is one more way of writing if condition, that is you can also add something called as else. Now what does this else mean? Now as the name suggests, first it will check if the condition is matching, then it will print or it will work on whatever statements that you have given within this block. In case if the condition is not matching, then it will come here and it will do whatever that you have given in the else. So that is what we mean by else condition. So you can always have two things to be done. That is, if the condition is true, do this. If the condition is not true, then do this. So this way, for the same example that what I have written, I don't have to have two if conditions separately. Okay, simply what I can do is here I can remove this condition itself, and if I say else, what will happen? Now it will come and check. First thing, is A equal to B? If it is equal to B, then it will try to exactly print this A is equal to B. And in case if A is not equal to B, then it will come and print it here. Just a minute. Okay, sorry for that. So now what I was saying is, so if the condition matches, that is, if A is equal to B, then it will come and execute this one. And suppose if this condition doesn't match, immediately you have a else. So it will come here, and whatever that you have given in the else block, it will run. So this way, for the same condition, you can have two set of values to be executed. That is, if condition matches, you do this regularly, whatever you have, and in case if condition doesn't match, then you execute this. So now let us run the same thing and see what will be the output. You see, it directly says A is not equal to B. That is because the condition is not matching, and in the else you have given this. So it will never execute anything that you have given here. But the same thing if the condition matches, what will happen? It will come here. Is A equal to B? Yes. Then immediately it will execute this. And after executing this, it will never come to this part, because you will come to this else only if this is not equal to. So after completing this, it will skip everything from here to here, and then it will directly come to the next one. So this is not separate line. I mean, you are writing everything separately, but this is completely considered as one block of statement. That means it considers everything as one way of executing it. And then based on whatever that you have given, it will work. So if this condition matches, it will execute this, and it will skip all this, and it will directly come to this line, whatever that you have after this. But if this condition doesn't match, then it will skip from here to here and then come to this else part. So now if it is equal to, if you run, you will see it prints only this. Okay, so that is how for an if condition you can have one more else wherein you can say which one to run. So basically, first if the condition matches, it will say this, and if the condition doesn't match, it will try to run this. Okay,